Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Crafty Concepts with Erin. I'm so glad you're here. This week, the creative design team and I are collaborating, and the challenge is cardstock only. So that's something we all have in our crafty stash, right? We have a ton of cardstock. So this is a really fun challenge. No pattern paper allowed. I have one photo and I love this photo. So I want to make sure I get it into the albums, and it has just a lot of history behind it. So this is my son Clayton, my other son Hayden, and two of the neighbor boys that they grew up with. And after they got done with their homeschool studies, these two boys were also homeschooled, they would meet in the woods because they lived a couple miles down the road, and they would spend their afternoons just playing in the woods, fishing. They were all into survival gear, so they had their pocket knives and walking sticks and little emergency kits. It was just good times, right? What a way for a boy to grow up. So I want to document this photo, and I've pulled some cardstock colors that I see in this photo. So we've got Sapphire because the boys are in blue jeans, and then we have the greenery in the background from the pine trees. So I've got pine, and then some Mocha and almond. Now almond's a retired color, but that's okay. I want to use it up because it's in my stash. So I think that this is going to be a fun challenge. So let me clear these out of the way and grab my Versamat. I know a lot of you are double page scrapbookers, and I do create a lot of double pages, but what do you do when you have one photo and you love it, so you want it to be in the albums? I am going to give you some tips as I create this layout for things you could do to create a second page, just in case you want to stretch this into a double page layout. So what we have here is the almond cardstock, and since we don't have any patterns, we need to make this more interesting, right? So I'm going to add some texture, and we're going to create our own faux wood grain. This is a technique I've already showed here on my channel. This is so easy and fun. Now, the side you want facing up on your layout is the side that's going to be down. Close to my heart cardstock is two-toned, so I do want the lighter side, so I put that facing down, and I'm going to emboss lines from the top to the bottom at random increments. So this one is about 1 inch, and then we're going to go, maybe about 1.5 or 1 3/4. They're going to vary anywhere between 1 inch and 1 3/4 inches. You could absolutely make them all the same if that was easier for you, but I kind of like the look of the varied widths of our wood planks. In the first video I shared this technique, I mentioned learning it from fellow maker Tanya Roberts, and I used to create my own wood grain with like a masking technique, and this is much more simple. If you have a scoreboard, that would also simplify this process, but your paper trimmer and embossing stylus works just fine. Once you have all of your lines embossed, you flip your paper over so the raised edges are facing up. I'm going to put down my all-purpose mat so I can ink off the edges, and this will keep my workspace clean. And then I'm using almond ink. So we're going for a tone on tone. You could absolutely use a darker color, and we're just very lightly hold your ink pad flat and then swipe in from the edges. And it's going to really pick up and define those embossed lines, but then you're getting some of that streaking on the actual paper too, giving that faux texture of the wood grain. I love it. You can always go back and add more. And then what I also like to do is ink up the edges. So I'm going to go around using the same almond ink and my ink blending tool and just darken up all of the edges. And then you can add even more distressing with your blending brush, which I'll show you here in just a moment. It gives you a different look. So I love having the blending brushes. They're great for stencils, but they give you a softer look. So I want to darken up the corners to create kind of a vignette look, and the blending brush is perfect. You can use little foam tools for that, but I prefer the blending brush. Let me wipe this up really quick and we'll get that cleared out of the way. Bring my Versamat back in, and now we have our custom piece of wood grain. I have a scrap of pine green cardstock, and I'm going to stamp on this. So let's use the lighter side, and that way we'll have more of an obvious contrast and you'll be able to see that pattern. This is a little background and texture stamp. It's a map and it is an exclusive stamp set that came with the Let's Go Anywhere scrapbooking workshop. I love my background texture stamps, so it's pretty much what sold me on the workshop. Now I'm flipping my Versamat over, so I have that foam, and then I am going to stamp off the edge. So bringing in your all-purpose mat protects your Versamat, and you can stamp right off the edge and then clean up the, whatever goes onto the background. So I do recommend practicing first. I've not used this stamp set, but that looks like it's stamping beautifully. Now it does kind of have irregular edges, but it is a square. So what I'm going to do is just kind of start stamping, and then I will rotate the stamp and kind of change positions. So we're going down the line. Now I'm going to kind of rotate it around and try to break up those obvious lines. They're going to be obvious, but hang in there. It's going to turn out, it'll look kind of weird at first, but you're getting darker areas where you're overlapping, but keep the faith. It's all going to come together. Stamping is a great way to create your own pattern paper and get some custom looks. So you can use background stamps like this, or even just your, like images. Now I'm going to attempt to hide some of those imperfections with my blending brush. So you can use the ink on your all-purpose mat. I'm going to pick up more. I'm darkening the edges, but then I'll also go over some of the areas in the center to kind of soften those transitions where my stamps overlapped a little bit. Now in the Let's Go Anywhere collection, there is a pattern paper with this matte background. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, we don't get to use pattern papers. That would be cheating. So I got to make my own. Once I have my photos and embellishments layered over this piece, you're not going to be picking up on those little imperfections. I think that looks pretty good. We'll add a little bit more inking to some of these transition areas here and call it good. This pine green color has become one of my favorite greens. So full disclaimer, I stocked up on 2 full cardstock packs. The cardstock is on sale right now. So if you love a color, it's a great opportunity to get it. And I do a ton of outdoor kind of hiking and mountain photos, so I know it will come in handy. I'm thinking I want to mat this, but I always print my pictures with a white border, and I didn't because this is a full 4x6. So I'm thinking it needs that white border. It just really makes it pop. So let's double mat it. We'll do a thin white border and then a whiter sapphire border. That definitely draws your eye right to the photo. Now I have these decorative shape dies. They're currently out of stock, but they are coming back one more time, so watch for those. But these arrows are really fun, and I think I'm going to make an arrow border. So I went ahead and die cut a whole bunch from the cardstock colors I shared with you in the beginning of the video, and we'll kind of spread these out. So we're going to do green and green at opposite ends, and then the Mocha, and then we have green in the middle, and we'll divide that with the sapphire blue. I don't want them all level. I want them at varied lengths, so I'll end up trimming the edges there. But another thing you could do with Close to My Heart cardstock is sand it. You guys have seen me do this before. It's a great way to texture it and just give it a little character so it has that white core. There are times you might not want the white core, but more often than not, I appreciate it. For my title, I think I'm going to use this outline alphabet die and use the word explore. Let's see how it's going to fit. Now, this has been crazy popular. It sold out during the maker preview period. They got it back in stock recently. It was gone within hours. So it is due to be back in April. And I just recommend you keep checking the website often for it. And when it hits the shelf again, I don't think it'll last long. So I'll need to run the E through twice. So I think that's going to work nicely. I'm going to go ahead and cut these probably from white. I think white will show up nicely. I ran these dies through my die cutting machine, once out of white paper and then once out of black paper. So I've got, I could use black letters with the white outline or the opposite, but I think I want to use the white because that's going to pop really nicely. And that's why this die is so neat, because you have the outline. So you could use the outline just by itself, or you could use this by itself, or you could nest them together, and it really defines it nicely and makes that stand out. So I love that you could do 2 different colors. So I think we'll go with this. I often like to create a little shelf, so to speak, for my photos to sit on. So I'm thinking the title will do the trick, and we can kind of just layer these letters right along the bottom of the photo here. But with that said, I always do that. So what if we ran them up the side? There's a space along the photo that kind of fits perfectly, and I like that it's the same length as the photo. So that's something a little bit different, and that could work. I'm going to pause on the title. I do know I want more layers. So this is a strip of Mocha cardstock. There was already cut. It was a scrap, so it doesn't go from the top to the bottom. But I thought, you know what, that might be kind of fun. So we'll sneak that in as a little layer there. I really like the almond, but off camera, I made a second wood grain background using Mink cardstock and pewter ink. So the exact same technique, just different color palette. And if I don't use this, it's not a waste. I'll just put it in with my wood grain papers. But I'm going to go ahead and switch these out. I'm just looking at this, and while this looks okay, this might look better. There's grays in the photo. So let me switch this out really quick. I swapped it out off camera so you didn't have to watch that whole process, and I do think I like it better. It kind of brightens it up. It shows more of the contrast in the faux wood grain than this one does. So I can always go over this with a darker ink and show more of that, distressing look, but I'll use that for another project. So we've got some embossing, some swinking, as Laurel Beard would call it, and sanding, and now we are roughing it up to create even more texture. So I've just used my edge distresser to rough up the outside edge. Now, since this doesn't run to the top and bottom, I'm going to turn my mat. It's a little easier for me to get a straight line, and I've got that conveniently located line on my wood grain paper. Let's check it with our T-square ruler. Yep, right on. Let me get that back into frame for you. And I'm going to go ahead and commit and adhere my little arrows down. I think the tape runner will work well for this. And while I do this, I do want to let everyone know that the Creative Design Team membership group is reopened and we are accepting new members. With the news of Close to My Heart closing their doors, we had quite a few of you reach out asking when we would be reopening. So we are doing that, and we welcome you into the community. I recommend you try it out for a month and see if it's a good fit for you. We teach technique-based classes you can use with whatever you have in your crafty stash. There's a weekly class plus weekly tip videos, a monthly challenge, and it's just really a great community. I know a lot of our members really appreciate our handouts that we have for each class. It's a full guide. There's a lot of sketches and step-by-step tutorials. So yeah, check it out. I hope you join us. I've pulled this little journaling spot from my stash. I made up a whole bunch of these, and the notebook edge is cut on the Cricut, and then I have a coordinating stamp that stamps the lines. I'm almost out. I'm going to have to make another batch. And I'm still debating on my title. I really like it underneath here. And then when we add the black outline, that's going to allow us to bring more black into the layout. So I cut a couple tags. That's Mink with pewter ink and then black with sanding. So I just want to show you this as an option. So if you are, creating your layout, you can have different ways of putting this together. But let's go with the moving it up the side, and we could put our journaling block underneath here. Now, you know what? We have room. If we bump this over, I really love that notebook edge. I think it's definitely a nice feature. So let's kind of, bring more to the page, and we'll run that notebook edge up further so it's kind of layered behind the photo. And then we can bring our tags back in right up top here. I think I want the pewter layered over the black at varied heights. And you know what? Rather than hemming and hawing, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to glue those letters down. So let's turn this so it makes it a little easier. I did cut that off. I want to show you I cut that off so I can use that for another project. And now what I find easiest for this when you're using the outline die also, let's bring in our T-square ruler so we can get those, nice and level. I'm going to adhere the outline first. I find this easier to get your spacing down, and then it makes it super quick to add the inside portion. So I'm using the Barely Art glue. It has a super fine tip precision nozzle, and I am just going to line these up using my reverse tweezers. Don't worry, I won't make you watch the entire process. You know what's on my list to try is the sticky specs sheets. I see Dorothy from Scrapbooking Quebec use them for intricate pieces like this, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm intrigued. I definitely have that on my list to order. So now that the outlines are down, this is so fast. I'm just going to put ink on the inside and then drop these pieces in. Again, I think using the outline first really helps you get those spaced out perfectly. Perfect, I say that subjectively. Paper crafting does not have to be perfect unless you're one of my OCD paper crafters and you measure everything. If that works for you, that's great. I'm more of an eyeballer, but yeah, these are just popping right in here. It's so easy. And then there are the little inside portions. So I have my little wax pencil that helps pick those little tiny items up, and then we can just kind of drop them into the inner portion. Another fun thing you can do with these letters is emboss them first with like an embossing folder to add some texture. There's so many different things you can do. Let's go ahead and cut off our, arrow tails here. I'm just going to use my paper trimmer and get rid of those little pieces there. I dug through what I call my boy stamps. This is an old one. It's from the Urban collection, and the hexagon says, "That was so awesome," and the arrows say one way or another. So let's see. I like that up there, and then we could put these guys down here. Now, I still want something for my photo to rest on. So I dug through some of my outdoor type stamps, and there's this little row of trees. And I thought maybe we could make like a little border going across. It would look good up top too. So I'm just going to stamp that on some white daisy cardstock with pine ink, and we'll stamp it twice so it's long enough to go across the whole base of the photo. Now, I don't have thin cuts for this one. This is an old stamp. Thin cuts were not a thing back then. So I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut that off camera. Now we have our cute little tree row. It's kind of too small. I don't like that. That's not looking how I anticipated it looking. So let's try something else. I've got this set of banners in here with little faux stitching. We can maybe cut a couple of those. Sometimes you'll see an idea in your mind and it doesn't always translate well onto paper, but that's okay. I always end up using those pieces I created anyway. Let's move our arrows over here. And you know what? I'm liking that. I'm also going to dig through my embellishment binder and see what I have. So this is an old school collection. There's this green kind of Converse shoe that I feel like just fits the vibe of my layout. I could use that little blue or gray camera. Let's just try the shoe for now. I feel like this lower right corner just needs a little bit more, visual weight to it. So let's try the shoe. That's cute. I do like that. And then we can try these trees up top. We could just do a small portion of the trees. We can, let's see how it looks if we run it all the way across, layered behind our little, "That was so awesome." Yeah, I'm going to trim it down. So as I mentioned earlier, this picture is my boys and the neighbor boys just doing what they would do almost daily. And I like to walk my dogs every day. I do a lot of hiking. So occasionally I would just go up and try and listen for their voices and check in on them. And it was fun because they'd be so excited to see me and, "Mom, come look at this fort we made," or this rope swing, or climbing trees. I would find them doing all sorts of fun stuff. So I'm adding a few enamel dots up top here, and to finish off those tags, I went ahead and swapped out those enamel dots for some twine. I just think that looks a little bit better with this layout design. And I'm looking at this, and we have a lot of the white over here, and I wonder if white, a little pop of white maybe might balance things out over here. So I grabbed my little sentiment spot, is kind of what I call these. These are just random. I always, if I'm die cutting something, I'll cut out extra little, shapes like this that I can just easily, if I'm making a card, pop a sentiment on. Ooh, there's a little star that might match. That might look really cute and bring that white in. And let's see. This is Brian. You guys haven't met Brian. He's Dave's sidekick, his right-hand man. He's actually a much more diluted color than Dave is, but they're both orange kitty boys. I'll have to do a layout on Brian and share his story because he has a very unique story in how he came to be a part of our family. So back to the layout. This is really cute. I love stars on boy pages, so I could use that. But you know what? That might look good kind of right underneath that shoe also. And then we could cut a circle and maybe have it coming half off. Let's see if we can pry this up. That'll be kind of, it comes off the cardstock, but not always the photo because it's a glossy photo. It's ripping just a little bit, but we're going to cover that back up. A little bit of the sticker ripped off and stuck to the photo, but I think that's going to be okay. We'll lift this up, and then the shoe can sit right on the star. I do like that. That's cute. I'm going to cut this in half. You guys are probably thinking I'm a crazy cat lady. Now we need a little bit of black over here. I have these little black acrylic stars. They're from the Hey Handsome collection, and then there was a black acrylic star collection before they moved to the paperboard shapes. So let's put the heavier one down on the bottom and the smaller one. And you know, I don't like that. Let me look for a smaller star. There's some smaller ones in here. And let me just go ahead and dump these out. Some of them are kind of a matte color and some of them are shiny. So I'm trying to find the same style. So I do have 4 cats, but we do live on a farm. So, you know, they're outside keeping the mice down in the hay barn. They, you know, I feel like it's a good balance. They come in at night and then come and go as they please during the day. After all that, I decided I don't like the stars. Let's try this little how cool sentiment. And it's okay. Maybe it's just too much. Maybe I don't want it at all. And the white star is enough to bring that white over to the right-hand side. So I would say for only using cardstock, this layout has a ton of interest with the distressing and then our faux wood grain and our stamped background, and then with all of the fun stamped icons. So we've got one sticker, but everything else is just stamped cardstock. I think this is a fun challenge, and like I said, we all have cardstock in our stash, so something you might want to try for yourself. And I did say I would give you tips on how you could turn this into a double page layout. You can always like flip it and mirror the layout for the second page, but I have the Creative Design Team 12 by 12 sketchbook, and there is a sketch in here that I think would lend itself very well to this design. So you can see we have the solid, either cardstock or pattern paper on the very outside edges of the layout. So you could use this arrow element to recreate this sketch rather than a solid strip. Just use the arrows leading your eye into the photos, and on this side the arrows would point in. And I've seen a few of the other Creative Design Team gals recreate this layout already, and some of them have just done the center photos. And if you're just doing the center photos, you could make them larger photos across the center if you're not doing all of these. This is a great layout when you have a ton of photos though. But yeah, this would be perfect for something like this, incorporating this arrow design and then just having your photos go across the center. So that is an idea for you. And I did end up adding that white circle after all. I cut it even thinner, so now it's just a little tab element on the side. Everything I used can be found in the description box below the video, and I hope you come join us over at the Creative Design Team membership. You will love it, I promise. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to check out the rest of the Creative Design Team for this fun cardstock challenge. You can find their videos here on the right, and if you're looking for more boy inspiration, check out the video on the left.